Godwinson's kicking it up Chipman style? Let's peep this out. Bob Chipman was born in 1981, the oldest of 3 siblings and the unfortunate victim of a pair of helicopter parents. Bob looks back at his early childhood with a mixture of regret and pity. As he puts it, he wasn't a very good student, he wasn't very sociable, and he was fat. 3 things you really don't want to be as a child. The only thing he really looks back on with any sort of fondness from this era is his NES and Mario. Pretty constant throughout the Chipman Odyssey, as anyone who looks into him will discover. In 1991, Chipman got a Super NES for graduating the 5th grade with nothing below a C. Pretty easy bar to clear. But notably, Bob began schooling in 1985. That implies that he was held back a year because he didn't actually graduate until 1991. It's possible those numbers do actually line up, but whatever, I thought I'd mention it. The 2000s, Bob attended a local state college, which sounds an awful lot like a community college, while he worked at various video stores in the area. At the same time, he got a gig doing movie reviews for a public access show run by a, quote, hyper-conservative Christian. Bob would eventually get kicked off the show when he refused to give The Passion of the Christ a positive review, but through connections he made there, he managed to get a job at Best Buy in the video game section. Now having to see video games all day, every day, Bob started to get back into them, which prompted him to start making videos on the internet discussing trends in gaming and the rise of the dude bro shooter. The Game Over Thinker, as it was called, actually managed to find something of an audience, because at the time, if you were making anything at all, it was going to be noteworthy on YouTube. Through this, Bob got a job with Screw Attack making The Game Over Thinker, a show where he plays about 13 different characters who all talk and look exactly the same. He was also making movie reviews on his YouTube channel at the time, which got him a gig with The Escapist, the home of Zero Punctuation, as the resident movie review guy. Things were going pretty good for Bob at the time, and in 2012 he decided to finally move out of his childhood home with his parents. Unfortunately, right before he moved out, his dear grandmother, Vivo, passed away. Pretty depressing event for anyone to lose a family member, but Bob reacted a little weirdly. Not being very good at processing this sort of thing, while Bob did attend the wake for his grandmother, he didn't stick around for the family gathering, which can appear a little callous. It's commonly said that he completely skipped the funeral in favor of playing Mario, but that doesn't really seem to be the case. After 2012, Bob did actually move out into an apartment, which ironically was a basement apartment, which brings him closer into the stereotype of the basement-dwelling gamer. But hey, when you're 32, you gotta take what you can get. In 2014, seemingly the most important cultural event of the last 100 years, Gamergate happened. Bob was pretty ardently against Gamergate. He really didn't care for it. He thought it was misogynistic, he thought it was stupid, he thought it was cruel, he thought, oh, whatever the fuck, who cares? What's important is Bob was very public about his feelings on Gamergate. And The Escapist was one of the few websites that actually took a neutral stance on the issue. Most places completely banned any discussion on the event, but not The Escapist. In fact, they promoted several pro-Gamergate voices. This prompted Jim Sterling, another prominent contributor to the website, to actually leave of his own accord. But Bob wasn't going to give up his cash cow that easily. Instead, Bob stuck around and just talked a ton of shit until he was finally let go in 2015. Not a great time to be without a job, because it also turned out Bob had type 2 diabetes. That's the kind of diabetes that you can't blame your genetics for. It wasn't all bad though. Bob did manage to land on his feet. He got a gig with Screw Attack making video essays about really whatever the fuck he wanted to make them about. These videos weren't super popular, and they immediately struck kind of a negative chord with the fan base at Screw Attack, which actually prompted ScrewAttack to put a disclaimer on each of his videos that they were his opinions and his opinions alone. Turned out, Bob also wasn't employed by ScrewAttack, he was a private contractor, which meant he didn't get all the benefits that an employee might get. He wasn't necessarily fired from ScrewAttack, but his contract was not re-upped, so kind of fired. In 2018, The Escapist came under new management, as his website had more or less been defunct for the last year. This new management had decided to bring on a lot of the talent that had been lost over the years, including Bob Chipman. Now, this is interesting because part of the statement of the new Escapist is that they were planning to be apolitical, which Bob got fired from The Escapist originally because he couldn't shut up about politics. So it's interesting that he would even take the position. And it seems inevitable that he will lose it again when he starts spurging about whatever new political bullshit comes up in the next few years. But even if he does lose it, Bob's probably not going to be in the poorhouse anytime soon. He makes $4 grand on Patreon. That's over 4 times what you would earn in a month on minimum wage. So he's pretty much living the best life he could be living. And that's just the money he's getting from Patreon. That's not counting his ad revenue or whatever the Escapist is actually paying him. He also writes for a few other websites on the side as well. So really, it's a matter of Chipman either losing a foot to the Beatus or completely destroying himself in his crusade to be an Ubermensch. One or the other. Probably the other. Whatever. I don't give a shit. I don't know how to end these things.